Good afternoon or evening. Thank you for attending this session. My name is Betsy Gilliland. I'm a professor at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and I'm honored to be presenting with my colleague at Meiji University in Japan, Madoka Kawano. Our topic is raising critical thinking in L2 writing pedagogy, perspectives from the United States and Japan. Here's our bio data as requested by the conference. So we'll start with defining critical thinking because that's the core idea in this project. Ennis, who's a scholar writing a lot about critical thinking, defines it as reflective and reasonable thinking focused on deciding what to believe or do. So really, Ennis's definition thinks specifically about what's going on in your mind. Reasoning, logic, judgment, metacognition, which means thinking about your thinking, reflection, questioning, mental processes, and purpose are some of the features of critical thinking that have been discussed in the literature. Most critical thinking instruction takes what we've called a CT skills focus. The idea that the main point is to think about your own thinking, metacognition, and to logically evaluate information sources in order to solve problems through choosing a strategy or solution. My work with a former graduate student has also looked at what we've called dialectical critical thinking, which takes into account the issue of the individual writer's own egocentrism and sociocentrism, thinking about that, helping them understand their own biases and stances and biases that might be coming from their cultural backgrounds. In the United States, there actually has not been a lot of work on second language writing and critical thinking. This might be from Atkinson's concern in the 1990s that critical thinking is a cultural practice, which is very unique to certain cultures and is done differently or not at all in other cultures, and therefore it shouldn't be taught. There has been quite a bit of work on critical thinking in second language writing in other contexts, though. So my graduate student, Jay Tanaka's work is one of the few that has looked at critical thinking in second language writing in the United States. And what Jay found was that students in his class were able to identify multiple viewpoints and to understand their own personal and cultural biases. And another interesting finding Jay found was that students were able to recognize cultural differences in the use of critical thinking, understanding that it's done differently in different places. Some of the concerns that have come up in second language writing in the United States in general are an overemphasis on the structure, the format of a writing text without really thinking about the genre, the purposes, the audiences of a text, and the social uses of it. This also has led to some strong disjunctures from secondary school to university, where authors or writers, student writers, are often taught the 5-paragraph essay in secondary school, and when they get to university have to relearn how to think about their writing, which is why there's now a bigger concern with teaching writing for transfer, to give students the understanding of multiple functions of writing that they can then use as they learn what to do in writing in other contexts.
Okay, now let me turn to situations in Japan. Now in Japan, compared to the United States, second language writing had much less focus in education. And one study revealed that 43.6% of the high school graduates were at the bottom of A1 level, And to most of the high school graduates, writing in English means translation. And high school textbooks approved by the Ministry of Education lacked a lot of activities connected to high level or higher order thinking levels. And students are not really encouraged to think or read or write critically, even in the first language. So in response to these situations, the Ministry of Education started to reform entrance exam of universities. But last year, it was postponed, according to what they say. And but the educators are worrying if the students are more paying attention to the forms of writing tests rather than their purposes of writing. Okay, now very few studies on second language writing and critical thinking have been conducted in Japan. Stapleton's research was the first investigation, and Kamimura and Oi 2006, they were the first scholars who paid attention to logical thinking and writing skills in the second language. And they published the study in the Journal of AsiaTEFL. And Kawano and Nagakura and myself and my colleague conducted writing research in 2017. Now, in this presentation, let me report a case study, which is the second series of what I done in 2017. Now, undergraduate general education courses, I conducted an academic English course, and there was a 14-week term course, required course, and my students were at beginner to intermediate level. That's TOEIC 450 to 600. So I would say that's CEFA level A2 to B1 level. And in this particular course, I set up a research question. How do students improve the logics of second language writing by studying argumentative writing? In particular, two interventions or two scaffoldings work or not. So intervention one, emphasis on pre-writing or brainstorming, and intervention two, feedback from instructors and among peer reviews. So that's composed of 5 lessons, and each lesson had 50 minutes. And the prompt was what you are seeing right now. The use of social media is beneficial or harmful for education. Now, students brainstormed on this topic, and then they came up with outline, and then they discussed their outlines among peers and with the instructor, which is myself. And then they wrote first draft, and then again discussed with peers, and then they came up with the final draft. Now, this is a whole picture of this research design, but in this study, I'm gonna focus on the outline and evaluation of final composition. Now, can you take a look at the example of student 1? For example, this student wrote this outline by himself first. Okay, so after the student wrote this outline, there was a discussion among the students, and the peers gave this comment in this balloon. Okay, and then they said 1 and 2 need to be discussed in reference to education. And the support number 3, it's used by millions of people. So that was commented by the instructor. Does popularity means benefit? So in this moment, this student was really challenged, and he had to think deeply and with a different view. after receiving those feedback, student 1 came up with this outline. And topic sentence was this, and this red words were added or changed. And at this moment, students was really engaged in critical or conceptual thinking. This is the observation. Now, most students looked like they were participated in peer review activities for the first time. Now, they looked at the outlines, and that's worked very well because they had difficulties in linguistic features as well, but at this time, they were able to concentrate on the thinking levels. Now, I use this rubric, Kamimura and Oi, because to evaluate what the students wrote, because those logical consistency or organization or degree of support, these are all the elements of critical thinking. This is a comparison of pretest and final products. Now, pretest was conducted with a similar topic, but it was done with a different prompt. So I didn't really go into the statistical analysis, but you will see the patterns were changed. For example, organizations and degree of support. So students first did not really have, half of the students did not have conclusion, but towards the end, they wrote conclusion. And as for the organization, this white area, at the pretests, 20% had organization, but towards the end, they learned to organize their ideas and express their ideas in a structured way. Degrees of support, the students towards the end, more than 60% learned to support what they were saying by some kind of evidence. Now, let me show you some of the samples of students wrote as the final essay. Student 2, this is an introduction sentence, the introduction paragraph of what he wrote. Okay, I'm gonna let you read. Now, this was done in 2018. If it were done this year, maybe the response would be really different. But anyway, that's what he wrote. So he is supporting his claim by citing some data. And also he is trying to interpret what the data means. Here is another example. So student 3 is using different views, and she is arguing different opinions, and then she is choosing her positions. So this example is somehow showing the changes that this student experienced. This is word counts. So conclusion, it seems that emphasis on pre-writing activities and feedback from instructor or peers seems to be effective in developing writing and critical thinking skills. Small percentage of students still didn't learn, but I guess they need further practice or longer period of study. So implications at this level, maybe it works to concentrate on their thinking or logical flow or outlining before they start really writing. And with advanced levels, maybe they have some different ways of learning second language writing. And my conclusion, educators should accommodate students to engage in processes which would stretch their minds and writing skills. Okay, Betsy, would you like to add or comment or anything?
I think it's, as Madoka's evidence has shown, that it's actually quite easy to integrate elements of critical thinking into a writing class. It doesn't require special textbooks or additional materials or instruction. It's really, the key is to help students start thinking about their thinking and recognizing where their ideas may not be in line with what other people say, or where their ideas may be culturally informed, and thinking about if other cultures do things in the same ways that they do.
Yeah, I totally agree that actually you don't really need any specific textbooks, but yeah, so the instructors or educators really need to keep in mind that the students are not really writing to the test or to show any grades or something like that. So if educators keep those things in mind, I think students will start to learn gradually what they are really thinking from different views. Okay, I think that concludes our presentations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.